have a background of playing Chinese music and mainly self-taught. I'm talking about in the 70s, and the Chinese orchestra movement, so called in Singapore, is just started. I mean, maybe 10 or 20 years ago. I mean, Chinese orchestra is still quite, in a way, quite primitive compared to symphony orchestra, and a lot of things I think they adapted from the symphony orchestra in terms of the sections. Of course, the section is different. In Chinese orchestra, you have pluck string, you have woodwind, but of course it's different from the Western woodwind, and you have percussions, also quite different, and then you have strings. You have these four sections. Compared to the symphony orchestra, you also have four sections, except that in the symphony orchestra you don't have this pluck string. But we don't have enough score that time, and I think the Chinese orchestra during that times are basically all amateur Chinese orchestra, and due to some political reasons, because Chinese music is from China, and then in the 60s and 70s, China is having their cultural revolution, and something to do with the communism. So Singapore is government is very against that communism, as you know. So then a lot of music for Chinese orchestra have that kind of political background. Some don't have, but a lot of them during that time they created. So they are mostly banned, and they even ban those knocks, don't have this political
you're not allowed to have certain melody.
So everything is banned actually because of that. So you cannot really find music score for solo or for ensemble, and I think there are some older recordings from the 50s that you still can acquire from that time, but I mean it's very limited. I actually listened to all the available recording of Chinese music during that time. You only have maybe you can find probably around 100 records, and I listen to all of them, but you still don't have the score. So what to do? Then you have to try to dictate, do dictation from the recording. Then you work out all the parts, and you pass it to the member of the so-called orchestra, and we'll play that.
Wow.
And it's a very good training on ear training. I mean, you listen to the whole piece of music, and then you try and figure out the different parts, what instrument is playing what during that time. And we're talking about amateur, style of working, and we are not trained at all at the time. You cannot find any teacher. Not like nowadays. I mean, there are so many good players from overseas, from China, whether Western or Chinese. That time, Chinese instrument. Why we pick up Chinese instrument is because it's cheap, and those days Singaporeans are not so well-to-do. Yeah, and learning Western music is luxury. I mean, how can you afford a piano and a violin, and not to mention about the lessons? So Chinese orchestra instrument is the most affordable. I mean, during that time you can have a flute for less than $1. Yeah, you cannot imagine. But of course, those are very
So what were you playing? What was your instrument?
Anything. I mean, I self-taught. I teach myself to play the Chinese flute, and then later on, I played the Shen in. I managed to join a better Chinese orchestra, the National Theatre Trust Chinese Orchestra. That is the only orchestra that give you an allowance. I think monthly allowance. So every month you get $40, which is a lot. During the late 60s and early 70s, I think it's about almost, I think it's more than $400 now compared to now.
$40 is like $400.
Yeah.
Okay.
Something like that. Yeah, and it's not so much about the money. It's the kind of honor. You play, you do something you like, and then you get pay for that.
So how old were you when you were dictating the notes from here? Yeah.
Okay, I joined the Chinese orchestra when I was 16 or 17, and then I was still struggling that time. After that, after a few years, I have my group of friends. We form a group, and then that's when the need arises. So I have to, I'm the leader, so I have to, solve the problem of the shortage of the score. So at first, I do dictation, and then we just play, and we really enjoy it because it's very simple music, and then it's you have a sense of achievement because we are not well trained musician, and yet we can do something like that during the time. Of course, the music is not very complicated, but still, you do it from scratch.
So you didn't have any teacher, music teacher?
Not that time.
Okay.
To join the orchestra, you have the opportunity to learn how to read score, but the score is not the Western notation. It's the the numbers. Yeah. Yes, and then our full score is also in numbers. So from there, I saw the need of to improve my arranging scale. So I think in early there was a few years after that, I get a chance to learn from Mr. Leong Yoon Pin.
Yeah.
And before that, actually, I have another teacher. I learned theory from him. You probably don't know who is that. He's one of the earlier member of the SSO. His name is Fu Kim Hong. I don't know whether you know. He's a cellist, and he he studied in Taiwan, and he plays the cellos and piano. I actually learned piano from him for 1 or 2 years, and then a group of us learned theory under him. And after we I think we go up to grade theory, and that time the theory is not as difficult as now, but we spent 1 or 2 years to to be able to to pass the exams and so on.
Okay.
And after that, then I go to Mr. Leong.
Yeah.
Actually, those things we learn from Mr. Fu and Mr. Leong is quite different from what we are doing. So we didn't see the connection because there's purely Western music, the chord progressions, the triads, and then Chinese music. You're talking about pentatonic scale. They applied some of the very simple Western harmonization, but it's still it really cannot connect. And only after some years, then when you have enough practice in arranging for both Chinese and Western instrument, then you see the the connection. Then your arrangement and your works gradually take shape, be becoming more mature. The first turning point was in 1970, if I'm not wrong. A group of us, from the Chinese orchestra, youngster, below 20s, we joined the Singapore Youth Chinese Orchestra. We got a chance to go to attend International Orchestra Festival it meant for symphony orchestra. We were, that time I think the youth orchestra was invited to Switzerland to attend the international festival of young youth orchestra. So somehow, they also invited the Chinese orchestra, and I'm one of the member of the Chinese orchestra. At that time, I was playing the flute, and then we all went over, and during that festival, I think it's about a week long. Every night you get to see different orchestra concerts, and after that we were quite impressed with all these things, because in Singapore at that time you didn't. How often you can have an opportunity to see a Western orchestra, and then the one you can see is still a amateur orchestra, like the SYO. I think it's one of the best. And before that you have this there's a symphony orchestra under the National Theatre Trust also. That one is conducted by Ronnie Lickris. He's the assistant of Zubin Mehta, of the Israel Philharmonic at that time. Wow. That one is, it's still considered a amateur orchestra, and then they don't perform so often. When you go to Switzerland, you watch concert every night.
Wow.
Yeah, and then orchestra from all over the world. Yeah. The Chinese orchestra, when they came back to Singapore, they all wanted to learn Western instrument.
I see.
So and then since I play the Chinese flute, so to save money, I pick up the Western flute, and at the same time I learned the piano from Mr. Fu. Wow. And I teach myself to play the Western flute, and then so I do all this theory thing, at the same time, concurrently. Within 3 years, I pass all this. But I because I feel that I'm too late to start, actually. But what to do? You don't have the means to do that kind of thing at that time. So actually, I started learning the piano is like 18 or 19. Then I started learning the piano, and then when I in 21 or 22, I get my all my grades already. So and then I think this Western instrument helps me in later in my composition.